Um, Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to the second day of the Agri-Tech Seminar in collaboration with CII and the Ministry of External Affairs, Economic Diplomacy. We had a fabulous kickoff session yesterday in the presence of Honorable Ministers Marie-Claude Bibeau and Narendra Singh Tomarji, High Commissioners Nadir Patel and Ajay Bisaria, Additional Secretaries Alka Bhargav and Mr. P. Harish, and a host of distinguished industry specialists. Yesterday's session set the tone on the importance of sustainable food supply and agri demands for the future, and on the transition, the trajectory that the agriculture sector is on with the infusion of advanced technologies. In fact, Minister Bibeau said yesterday that in India, rapid economic growth is driving new consumer demands and preferences, and Canada can help India meet those demands through scientific and technological expertise in food processing, food safety, and transportation infrastructure. Honorable Minister Tomarji said that there is considerable potential for growth in the Indo-Canadian agricultural trade. This goes to emphasize that India and Canada are natural partners in the agricultural sector. One has the technology and the expertise, one has the requirement. So these discussions today are going to be to help meet the two and have action planned future initiatives for business collaborations between companies in India and Canada. Therefore, while yesterday's sessions concentrated on the solutions and sustainable farming, tonight, after the special addresses, discussions will be focused on plant protein production and agri-cold storage, logistics and investments, especially since nutritional deficit, post-harvesting processing, storage and handling are key developmental areas in India. We are very privileged to have distinguished delegates from Canada and India present tonight. Let me first welcome Honorable Blaine Pedersen, Minister of Agriculture and Resource Development, Province of Manitoba. Minister Pedersen has more than 30 years farming experience in cattle and grain operations. He is an active member of his community, serving in many livestock organizations and groups such as Kinsmen, Toastmasters, 4-H program, and a local housing corporation. Minister, we are delighted to have you here with us today. Over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Nadira. Welcome from friendly Manitoba. So on behalf of the province of Manitoba, it is an honor to be joining today's seminar. We are here today to continue building partnerships and stimulating opportunities between Canada and India. As one of Canada's fastest growing provinces in agri-food, Manitoba continues to grow its reputation as a leading innovator and supplier of safe, nutritious, and sustainably produced food products. One of the key economic drivers in Manitoba's agricultural industry is protein. We have strong leadership within this sector, innovative companies, access to top talent, and leading research and innovation assets that collectively form an environment that supports bilateral partnerships. Manitoba has the right attitude and the right players to foster and strengthen relationships between our two countries. For example, Manitoba's Food Development Centre has in the past collaborated with various Indian state governments, including Punjab, Haryana, and Gujarat, to advance value-added agriculture and food development and mutually build synergies in research and innovation. We have strong and deep-rooted relationships between India and Canada, and I believe the opportunities for continued growth and collaboration are significant. The global demand for plant protein is growing rapidly. This creates a unique opportunity for each one of us to play a role in ensuring we are engaged and capitalizing on this growing demand. The province of Manitoba is positioning itself to be a major sustainable protein ingredient supplier. In 2019, we launched the Manitoba Protein Advantage strategy to grow the plant protein industry and position the province as a leader of sustainable protein production. Engagement, leadership, innovation, and investment by our international and domestic partners is critical to the success of the development of the plant protein ingredients and products for the future. To keep momentum, we want to build further synergies between the protein businesses and research institutions to develop and share technical knowledge and complement the expertise across our regions. We have a thriving plant protein industry in Manitoba with companies processing protein from a variety of locally grown commodities, including peas, canola, oats, faba bean, and hemp products. Since 2016, we've seen over $1 billion in new plant protein investment in Manitoba. In fact, Manitoba is home to the world's largest pea protein processing facility, as well as homegrown successes, including North America's leading hemp food processing company and a company that is leveraging its innovation developed in Canada to extract protein from canola meal. You can see that Manitoba is about much more than crop production. It is also home to cutting-edge food processing and world-class research infrastructure in the agri-food space. Manitoba has advanced industrial technologies, broad research and innovation capacity to effectively support protein extraction and the development of protein ingredients and finished products. These attributes position our province for success and opens the doors for partnerships and investments. We all know the importance of trade opportunities, but driving future value in plant protein depends on a number of factors. And amongst these is the products must meet consumers' demands and needs. There needs to be trust by consumers that our products are produced in a sustainable way. We need to have efficient and timely supply chains and science-based policies that support trade. We need to continue to innovate and collaborate to support new value and business opportunities. And lastly, we need to adapt rapidly to the realities of a changing climate. Today, we are happy to be part in stimulating thinking and discussion on these topics. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and look forward to continue building partnerships between our two great countries to advance innovation and sustainability and to expand trade. And we welcome any further inquiries. Just go to manitoba.ca/agriculture. Thank you, Nadira, and have a great conference today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. As you said, Manitoba has the right attitude and the right players. So set for great collaborations with India and Canada, and of course with Manitoba. Thank you for those insightful words. And let me now ask and request Deputy Minister Andre Tremblay, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, Alberta. Minister Tremblay, Deputy Minister Tremblay has over 20 years of public sector experience that includes provincial and municipal governments, as well as non-government organizations and academia. Mr. Tremblay, may I request you to make your address? We are delighted to have you here with us. Over to you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I just want to really thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you today. And on behalf of Premier Kenney and Minister Dreeshen, it's really an honor to talk to this group. And, you know, on a personal note, I've had the opportunity to travel to India on a number of occasions for food-related trade and investment work across India. And I was so excited to be able to participate today because I really feel that I've had an opportunity to understand some of the real opportunities that exist with India. And it's also really important to note the longstanding relationship that Alberta has with India. India is home or part of a personal history with over 200,000 Albertans. And so there's a very, very strong cultural and economic linkage that exists between Alberta and India, and I think that's important to understand. We also understand that food security is a growing concern in India, and Nadira, you mentioned that in your opening address. And as things continue to grow, the economy continues to grow in India. There's also obviously tremendous demand for things like pulses, oil seeds, etc., which has really helped drive the important relationship that exists between India and Alberta. And I think it's important to know that we already have over $100 million a year in exports from Alberta to India. So there's already a strong foundation to work off of. And it's always important to understand that although $100 million is significant, I think there's also significant opportunity to grow that. And within that $100 million, there's $30 million in dried peas and 55 million in lentils, and the rest of it being canola and other smaller products. And I think that partnership will continue, but there's also an opportunity to exchange more ideas on technology, on production efficiency increases, and on overall innovation. And we're excited to engage with leaders from India to explore some of those things. India is one of the largest markets and the most diverse markets in the world. And I know I'm speaking to people that understand that, but I think from an Alberta perspective, we really want to continue to embrace that partnership. And as I mentioned, we are already trading oil seeds and pulse crops and those sort of primary types of products and food supply, but there's also tremendous opportunity around wastewater management, animal genetics, the development of new technologies around agri-tech in terms of equipment automation, greenhouse technologies, machine learning software that allows for more efficient production on the ground. And then again, a global challenge that we all understand and are dealing with is how do we manage wastewater within the agriculture production space? And Alberta has expertise and companies within each of those areas that I think would benefit India. And I think there's some tremendous companies within India that, quite frankly, Alberta can learn from as well. And so that's a really important kind of point to make. It's not just Alberta supporting India. In my time in India, what I came to recognize is there's really important emerging technologies and production practices that I think we could potentially adapt to Alberta as our jurisdiction as well. And so when I look at a partnership like this, I think about it tangibly in a reciprocal way that it really needs to be a partnership. There's other areas that are emerging in Alberta that I think would be important to work with India on, and that's precision agriculture around soil enrichment and soil management. Alberta has a long-standing reputation as a strong player with regards to livestock traceability in order to maintain market access, and advanced grain storage management systems, and actually the use of drone technology to monitor crops and supply chains. All of these technologies are emerging in a very, very strong way within our jurisdiction. And so when I think about our ongoing partnership with India, I really think about it moving from a pure commodity space to a technology and innovation space. I believe we will always be working together on commodities and primary food products, but based on India's strong technology and innovation foundation and Alberta's strong innovation agenda as well, I think our relationship can grow in so many different ways. And really, that's the key message today that I wanted to really convey to the participants, that the relationship is strong, but it can be stronger and it can branch out into so many different areas. And so with that, I just want to express on behalf of the Alberta government a sincere level of gratitude We've been working with many, many leaders in India for over 2 decades. We see tremendous potential for investment to sustain ongoing trade relationships. But I think of greatest importance, really embracing the innovation technology agenda to improve primary production in both jurisdictions, but also to increase profitability by being more efficient with how we produce food and food products, and at the same time reduce the environmental impact that agriculture might have on our respective jurisdictions. And so again, thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Nadira.
Thank you so much. And your key message that the relationship is strong, but it can grow stronger, is exactly what we are promoting here. The new areas that, as you mentioned about drone technology, about soil management, and we are at a very exciting stage where there is all this potential around us, and we need to take it by the horns, and we need to work on that. So thank you so much for your words and your message. We will act upon it and take this further. And with that, let me now turn to Ms. Shubhra A., who's the Director General and Trade Advisor in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Ms. Shubhra, over to you to please say a few words.
Yes. Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate this interaction. My thanks to ICBC, and it's an honor to be here. As I think some of the numbers I would just like to say, because I'm very proud of those numbers, although I'm sure the people in this August group, they already know these numbers. Like India is producing 300 million tons of food grains, 310 million tons of horticulture, 300 million tons of sugar, and add oil seeds and cotton and jute to that. So production is very strong. Production base is very, very strong. What is lacking maybe is that we need to shift at some point from food security, which I would say we have kind of achieved, to a place where we can talk about that the whole agriculture is based on farmer income. That should be our focus, and that is focus. As you already know, we have a goal to double farmers' income by 2022, and many things need to be done in that. And Canada is a very esteemed partner and a very, very friendly partner for us, because as I see it, now we are at a stage where we will be concentrating more on increasing productivity and yield, in saving wastage, in developing infrastructure, and infrastructure also we would be we have to focus on transport, logistics, storage, and processing. And those are the areas I would say Canada is very strong. And I look forward that we too can actually develop partnerships and relationships in that, because this is a time whereby India has to focus on resource use efficiency. And as you know, that resource use would come in the form of soil, water, seed, pest, and mechanization. Mechanization in itself will reduce the cost of production, will increase the output, and maximize the value of the output. And mechanization would be much, it's just more effective. The agriculture becomes much more effective. So therefore, we need to kind of concentrate on production enhancing technologies. We can really learn a lot from Canada. Canada is, as it is I have, when I visited Canada, I was very I would say happy to learn that I was told, I was served in a dinner, they served me lentils. So then they asked me, is it the way you make lentils? I said, I smiled. I said, actually, no, this is not the way we make lentils, but very sweet of you that you went out of the way to make it for us. So then I was told that we grow it for you. We in Canada, that's not our staple diet, but we know that Indians just cannot survive without that. So we actually grow it for you. And of course, we both know that pulses policy, pulses interventions, and all those things. The Canada has reservations on the way we are going about it. But let me say that as far as this very relevant topic of plant protein is being discussed today in India, lot of our diet is based on plant protein. We have a very large, millions of people who are actually based on plant proteins. And accordingly, I have a lot of pulses production and consumption. Again, soya bean production and consumption. the production is very good, volume wise, if I say, but a lot can be done to improve it, to improve the productivity, to improve the yield. That is where I think a role of a developed partner like Canada would come in very handy for India. So I see lot of gains, I see lot of value in this partnership between India and Canada, because as I'll again repeat that from national food security, now we should be all be moving towards improving farmer income, because everything said and done is still in India. Farm is not as well off, as rich as Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture would like, and that would require interventions at various stages, that would definitely require increasing efficiencies. So we have also been working on integrated farming system, because then you see we come from a disadvantage. An inherent disadvantage is because our land size is very small. Our farmers are, we are mainly in the category of marginal farmers, so they have a very high vulnerability on climate related issues. And therefore this integrated farming systems that takes care of many things together, so their vulnerabilities are decreased, their mechanization. You see, I mean, the advantage in India is that I have a lot of area which is under cultivation, irrigated land and all. We are a farming nation. It's good that COVID has realized, I mean, COVID, nothing good about COVID, but the COVID has made us realize that agriculture is in the forefront. So for a country like India, where it was important but it was not in the forefront, it was not being talked as much as it should have been. Now everybody, let me tell you, everybody is talking about agriculture, because that is one thing we realized, you cannot just push it to the second place. So this is a very relevant topic at the moment, and believe me, if we two can just understand each other better, there is so much to move forward. There's so much to move forward, especially on the technology side, on the way how we can improve processing, how we can offer value added products to the world, because lot of the fresh produce is going, as we all know, the values change, it's algebraically it increases if I can just send them in the processed variety, and market access issues also get resolved. So I will only wish that we develop this into much more, turn it into much more constructive partnership. And I think I would like to wish everybody a very nice session, and I'm hoping to learn and take home many things from this session. So thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to be part of this program, and I believe me personally, I see a lot of value between our partners. Thank you, Nadira.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as you said, yes, we are in this important transition of moving from food security to improving farmers' income. And I think we see a lot of constructive value now in partnership with between India and Canada. And this session is something that will, enhance this and enhance the understanding that you're looking for between India and Canada, how to collaborate even more closely. So thank you for that, Shubhra. And now let me welcome Mr. P. Harish, Additional Secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs, Economic Diplomacy and States. Mr. Harish has an enriching background in the Indian Foreign Service, and he is now presently in this portfolio. He has a very strong advocate for enhanced agricultural reforms and policies for higher development in this sector. Over to you, Mr. Harish.
Thank you, Nadiraji, for the kind introduction. I want to welcome and thank Minister Pedersen and Deputy Minister Tremblay for their time and for addressing this gathering. Want to thank Shubhra for your address, and also thank the other panelists who will come in after me, Mr. Deepak Bagla, the Chief Executive Officer of Invest India, and Mr. Murad Al-Katib, President and CEO of Agri-Food and Ingredients, Inc., and Ms. Anita George, President of the ICBC. Broadly, I'm thankful that CII and the ICBC have been able to put together this two-day conference. Why is it important, and why the focus on plant protein? Without further delay, let me just say that according to a Lancet study done last year, the global recommended protein intake is about 459 grams per day, whereas protein consumption in rural India is less than 200 grams a day, and in urban India around 250 grams a day. So Indians normally have a higher consumption of carbohydrates and sugar as compared to protein, as compared to the recommended levels. But if we look at the consumption of soya and other forms of protein, that is also very, very less. What we also see is with increasing levels of prosperity, there is a move towards consumption of animal protein. So in medium to longer term, as income levels rise in India for a 1.35 billion population, if this trend continues of shift from a plant-based protein diet to an animal-based protein diet, it would become environmentally unsustainable for us to be able to meet the protein intake requirements, even to come up to the globally recommended per day levels for every Indian citizen. It is here that Canadian research, their industries focus on plant protein and making available plant protein with a higher bioavailability to the human system, and making it available also in different formats assumes importance. I think we believe that Canadian research and technology and the practice of their industry in this has a huge relevance for us, and I would urge Mr. Deepak Bagla to ensure that our Canadian friends from the industry and business are able to find appropriate Indian interlocutors in our business and industry. We need them to come and invest in India so that we not only meet the requirements of the domestic market for protein consumption for our own people and for a higher bioavailability of protein in the products that are devised, but also to emerge as a destination for production for exports. I think it's important that this is the case. What this will also do, in my view, is to put our trade, our agri-trade, on a more firmer and sustainable footing. We have had some ups and downs. When there are good years, we don't import to the same extent. When it's a bad year, we probably import a higher level of lentils from Canada. So there are these fluctuations. I believe investments in the plant protein industry in India would create the ecosystem for a more sustainable and balanced agri-trade between our two countries. And it will turn out to be a win-win proposition for both Indian and Canadian business. And I believe there is this huge demand for protein in India and a huge demand for plant protein delivered through different formats, through different products, and delivered with a higher bioavailability of this, so that for the same intake of food, there is a higher absorption of protein by the body. I think this is where this will not only meet a key food security issue for us, it will also address a huge issue on nutritional security and ensuring adequate nutrition for our children, for our pregnant and expectant mothers in the various states where there have been some instances of stunting and wasting and probably not adequate levels of nutrition. So I think this is not only important from a business point of view for us, it's also important from a public health point of view and a nutritional security point of view. On other aspects that are part of today's discussion in the theme, I think yesterday we have had an elaborate discussion about how agriculture as a sector has stood up very well during the ongoing pandemic. It has been a ray of hope. The government has also used the pandemic period to push in path-breaking agricultural reforms, giving greater choice to the Indian farmer for sourcing inputs and for looking at markets, and for moving the government more from being a market maker to a facilitator for our farmer. I think to being a market facilitator. So I think in this sense, this is also a very, very important moment likened to the 1991 reform movement that we have seen in India. I think in supply chain logistics and in agri-technology, there have been, of course, the competence of Canadian business is very well known. We believe that cold storage infrastructure and technology for ecologically sustainable cold chains is a pressing requirement in India, and we believe we can benefit from Canadian investment, and it will be again a very, very mutually beneficial win-win business proposition for us. We also are very keen to partner with Canadian provinces so that particular provinces of India which have a very strong agri sector can, at a state-to-state level, a province-to-province level, have mutually beneficial cooperation. Earlier, we have had the visit of Minister Prasad Panda from Alberta, and he had met some of the Indian state governments to explore opportunities for cooperation. I'm glad Deputy Minister Tremblay is here, and we can encourage greater state-to-state cooperation between various state governments in India and the Canadian provinces. I think we believe that agri-tech startups hold huge potential. Last year, India was home to around over 450 agri-tech startups. We believe that they will come up with technologies that will address the digital divide that still exists between the agri sector and other sectors, amongst the digital haves and the have-nots. If we do not ensure access to internet, access to new technologies, to IoT, to 5G, to various other technological solutions that can help our farmer, I think it would not be a balanced growth, and hence the focus on delivering agri-tech and digital solutions for our farmers. We believe Canadian experience in this holds valuable lessons for us, and we have much to learn. I look forward to success of this particular two-day seminar. I'm confident that ICBC's white paper that they propose to focus on the agri sector will hold much relevance for encouraging cooperation in this sector between our business and industry and the two countries. The future is bright for our agri sector cooperation. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Harish, and thank you for your support in putting together this conference. We would really like to acknowledge and thank you for that. And as you said, that with our white paper, we will endeavor that we can further help in collaborations, business collaboration in the agricultural sector and the plant protein industry that you are so passionate about, that we can establish a stronger relationship between India and Canada. With that, I would now like to welcome Mr. Deepak Bagla, MD and CEO of Invest India, which is the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency. It is the first point of reference for investors exploring the India opportunities. Mr. Bagla's team consists of domain and functional experts that provide sector and state-specific inputs, policy guidance, timely regulatory clearances, and support to investors through the entire investment cycle. Mr. Bagla, your views on agri-investments would be great to know. Over to you.
Thank you, Nadira. And first, what we're doing to get this corridor going. Because what you've picked up today as a subject is a very, very critical subject which has not been touched before. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. But before that, I must thank Minister Pedersen and Mr. Deputy Minister Tremblay for their encouragement and their focus on strengthening the relationship between our two countries, and especially with the focus which we have on the provinces. Ms. Agarwal did give us some very interesting statistics, so I will bypass those. And Mr. Harish has already summoned me and ordered me that this shall happen, and we have to get this relationship further strengthened. I must let you know, he's one of the very respected members of our board of directors, so his wish is always a command. And with that, Mr. Harish, it shall be done as we speak. Murad, Katib, I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. And I have my good friend Anita George with us after that. Anita and I have been discussing, especially on the supply chain. Anita, I don't remember, I'm not sure if you recollect that in 2009, I'd come to you once and explained to you the importance of warehousing in India and how amazing IRRs which can come out of it. And I hope you're going to be looking at that opportunity now. But let me come back to the subject at hand, Nadira, and let me tell you why I said I think it is such a critical point. Every ninth agri-tech startup in the world is from India. And I'll tell you why is that. The reason is that 11% of the world's population lives in my villages. That gives you the scale at which it is happening. And with all those people, there is a connect directly or indirectly, either with agriculture or with that supply chain or food processing, which, as you know, is one of the most favorite sectors of my investment, which I'm seeing coming into India. And a large number of Canadian investors are looking at that sector. And do remind me to touch upon what is happening on the Canada-India investment frontier just after I finish off with some points on agriculture. Why I think this is critical is because I think in agriculture in India is at its one of most important inflection points. Ms. Agarwal mentioned a little about it, that now it's out in the forefront. I mean, if you look at it during these 197 days of the COVID, which we've been through currently, today is day 197, by the way, agriculture is one of our mainstays, which has held the strength of the economy and its backbone strong. We've seen our Kharif crop, sowing as well as harvesting in a double figure increase, which it was of last year. But I'll tell you what is driving it, and Ms. Agarwal mentioned about it, and Mr. Harish mentioned about it. It is being propelled, and this inflection point is now being propelled by four things. One is a focused government policy, unprecedented policy. You heard about farmers' incomes being doubled. You heard about number of other policy changes. For the paucity of time, I will not go into them. But this new policy, which has been announced during these days of the little virus, which is impacting us, are unprecedented, and that is going to change the face of what agriculture is happening in India. Equally important are three other pillars which are supporting this change which is happening. The first is digitization. You know, I have 743 million people on the net, but what's more interesting, every second, 3 new people are joining the net. And you know what's more interesting of those 3? 2 of them are from a village in India. This digitization is taking technology, which is my other pillar, is taking innovation, which is my another pillar, and is taking entrepreneurship, which is my fourth pillar, right down to every village in India. And just imagine a movement in India now, which is now being propelled bottom up. This is the thing, whenever we talk about India and whenever I talk about that inflection point which we are at, when I talk about scale, which we all know, this is probably going to be the largest market, at least for the next 100 years, in the free democratic world within one boundary, 1.5 billion customers, which is what we will be by 2025. But the other very interesting element of this marketplace is the pace at which it is happening. And this change is happening of this inflection point. And remember, I told you every second 3 new people joining the net. By 2024, I'll have 1 billion people on the net, 1 billion people on a mobile, 1 billion people with a bank account, and 1 billion people with a unique identity number. This is the force. This is the potential which this market is out there for. And one of the most special relationships we've had, and you've been a big architect of that, Nadira, has been our relationship with Canada. You know, I'll tell you, today my team is handling 172 business requests. And you know what's interesting? It's across 32 sectors. I remember when we had an event last year, when I spoke, I was at 108 business requests across 23 sectors. The depth and the breadth of this relationship is taking off now. I personally think you will hear a lot of this happening now, also because of the complementarities which are sitting. India is sitting on one of the most vibrant innovation hubs. And Canada's strength, when we talk about plant protein, for example, I'm not talking of the new burger, which was just introduced in the US 2 years ago, which is now made of vegetables and no longer. I think Burger King also introduced that one. We, by the way, have our own startups which are doing vegetable meat, or I don't know what it is called, but one of those things where it is now going to be used all over because of all that, and we are going to create lab proteins out of it. This market is going to be on an exponential increase. And I'm not even touching the supply chain. I'd let Anita touch upon it, and I'm sure she's looking at the immense ability of Canadian investment, which is coming onto that one. By the way, I must let you know what has happened in the past 5 years, 60 months, is one of our largest real estate investors in the world is Canada. You own one of our prime largest real estates as a single owner. So that is again to show you the strength of this relationship. And now just to go off, because I know you've just given me 7 minutes, Nadira, and you know I always get carried away and get on beyond my point. But let me leave you the last story, which will show you what will propel the strength of Canada and India together and the complementarity, and especially in the agriculture sector. Just a few weeks ago, I was on a panel with a 19-year-old boy called Rohit Kashyap. He is from a small district called Sitamhari in the state of Bihar. You know, India has 734 districts. Sitamhari is one of those administrative districts. 19-year-old Rohit Kashyap has started a startup called Maitri School. And you know what this startup does? It mentors other startups in the region which are developing agri-tech solutions, which are developing local solutions, not just to increase productivity, but to get that produce to the market, and not just get that produce to the market, but try and see how it can be best again brought into a food processing network so that there is a value chain involved. This is 19-year-old Rohit Kashyap from a small district in India. And when I tell you about this partnership between that innovation of Canada and the potential of India, these are the Rohit Kashyaps, which will build the foundation of this new relationship, Nadira. And this relationship is now at that inflection point. Thank you. Where I'm concerned at Invest India, you know I have a dedicated team, which is to handhold each and every investment which comes into India. We are with you. We will handhold you right through your India journey, get you all approvals, and get everything done for you to ensure that your business is not just viable, but is profitable. Come and join hands with the new India. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. It is always a pleasure to hear you. So even if you go off a few minutes, it's worth it. And thank you so much for encouraging words. And as you said, with all of us working together, I'm sure the India-Canada partnership is going to cross all limits. The only way is up, and we will do it together. So thank you for those words, Deepak. And now let me welcome Mr. Murad Al-Katib, President and CEO of Agri-Food and Ingredients Incorporation. He is the chair, Government of Canada National Agri-Food Strategy. He's on the boards of Protein Industries Canada Supercluster, Pulse Canada and Economic Development Regina. In 2001, Mr. Al-Katib founded Sascan Pulse Trading, providing the nucleus for AGT, growing the company into a world leader in value-added pulses, staple foods and pulse ingredients for markets around the globe, and building a Canadian startup into a global billion-dollar company. Murad, I've heard you earlier, and I heard you at our convention when you kindly came last year to participate. And we're very, very looking forward to hearing you again. Over to you, Murad.
Thank you, Nadira, and thanks to the ICBC for putting on this event. I'm just going to spend a few minutes giving a few comments on the subject. In recent decades, the world has made significant progress in improving agricultural productivity. We now finally produce more food than we need to feed everyone, but our food chains are imbalanced with environmental degradation, loss of biological diversity, food loss, food waste, and a lack of food security and control of availability and inflation of food. You know, the FAO has stated World Food Day is coming up on Friday, October the 16th, and COVID-19 has expressed a weakness in the global food supply chain. And World Food Day is calling for global solidarity to help all populations, especially the most vulnerable, to recover from this crisis and to make food systems more resilient, robust, so they can withstand increasing volatility and climate shocks, deliver affordable and sustainably healthy diets for all, and decent livelihoods for food system workers. COVID-19 has had a major effect on the way the world looks at food. Panic buying and empty store shelves around the world opened our eyes to the need for planning, and governments in the world have increasingly relied on the private sector to bring essential commodities or the retailers to bring these products to consumers and food companies for the innovation necessary to bridge the gap between health and nutrition of populations. COVID has ignited a reemergence of the focus on governments having buffer stocks, examining tariff and non-tariff trade barriers, limiting agricultural trade, and policies focused on the balance of domestic supports for farmers with goals of balancing affordable access to staple foods and commodities. Now, primary agriculture in Canada has always been recognized as a foundation of our economy. But in Canada, we take food for granted. We're blessed with two major assets that the world is short of: fresh water and arable land. And this presents an opportunity for Canada to lead the efforts to feed the growing world population and meet the needs of the consumer of the future. Our sustainable agriculture, when powered by our efforts to digitize and produce value-added food, fuel, and fiber from our commodities, will be a compelling growth driver of a new Canadian economy. And Canada's strategy will focus on adding value to our production rather than just exporting raw commodities, making us a natural partner for technology and development in a country like India. Historically, we've grown commodities and shipped to larger population centers for further processing or to other countries for value adding. So, we do believe that there's a generational opportunity in agriculture, and I am a strong believer that this is a century for agriculture. So agriculture 2.0, the next version, as I like to term it, presents an opportunity to change the historical role as global conditions shift in our favor. Climate change is going to change growing seasons in different regions of the world, making some areas more volatile and some areas more vulnerable, like a country like India that is reliant on monsoon rain collection for agriculture. But in countries like Canada, we're seeing a slightly longer growing season in Western Canada, reducing our fall frost risks and extending the number of frost-free days in production. Global production growth will add 2 billion more people in the coming decades, increasing demand for protein. And processing is more likely to move closer to the high-quality raw materials. And in pulses, India is the largest producer and consumer in the world. Foods that come from sustainable and clean environments, will enjoy a market pricing premium. And, I very much subscribe to Mr. Harish's comments earlier about, the shift in diets in India as incomes are rising from a traditional vegetable protein diet to a meat protein diet. We must acknowledge the environmental sustainability advantage of plant-based proteins, and in particular, the water consumption per unit of protein. Western Canada's plant-based protein and value-added pulses, cereal, and canola processing opportunities are massive, and along with that come the technologies that are developed to bring those products to market. Our farmers are among the best in the world and are early adopters of game-changing technologies. And so when we look at turning those seeds into ingredients, this is a model that India may follow. Showing that the processing and fractionation of seeds can triple the value of raw materials that we may export today as commodities. Rising consumption levels in emerging markets, particularly in Asia, will increase global demand for food commodities. And Canada has the opportunity to not only increase its market share of supplying food products, but also to adopt and to transfer cutting-edge digital technologies, including the implementation of precision agriculture, the use of sensors for data collection and analytics, and the use of artificial intelligence to improve our output, quality, and to reduce our pesticide and herbicide use per acre. The combination of breeding, agronomy, seed genetics, and digital technology creates a step change in productivity and sustainability along the supply chain. We have the tools and scale to implement this vision, and we can be the natural partner in India to also implement this vision. In order to capitalize on the global demand for protein, India and Canada must build an integrated world-class trade infrastructure that integrates our agricultural economies. Canada is going to continue to develop its trade infrastructure and its innovation platform to deliver on this opportunity. We have an innovation ecosystem that's driven by a willingness of universities and research organizations to partner with the private sector to develop and commercialize innovative products for future, including zero carbon fertilizers, new crop varieties, and plant-based products and proteins. The protein industry supercluster, which we're going to hear from Bill Gruel, the president of the Supercluster, is an ambitious initiative, an ambitious program headquartered in Saskatchewan, deploying $152 million of government support and leveraging over $250 million in additional industry investment. Simply put, it will invest in innovations that allow ambitious farmers to seize the opportunity to make Canada the first stop on the protein highway. And innovations in the agri-food sector are poised to help advance innovations such as renewable biofuels made from canola that represent significant opportunities for Canada to achieve sustainability and climate change goals and drive the decarbonization of our economy. The opportunities are huge. I used the word above, generational, and Canada's role as a global powerhouse and a natural partner will be bolstered by our continued ability to generate food products that will feed the world. Our global geopolitical importance in Canada will be bolstered by our position to deliver solutions to the world. And what a more noble cause that we're all pursuing than providing sustainable crops, foods, and products to the world. So I'm very excited to be here today. India is a country that we don't just export to. It's a country that drives our business, that we watch every day of our lives. And it's a country that we are very excited to get more and more involved with. So I'm going to leave my comments there, Nadira. Thank you.
Thank you, Murad, and we look forward to hearing more from you in our next session on plant protein. Let me now welcome Ms. Anita George, EVP and Deputy Head CDPQ Global and newly designated President of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber. We are very proud to have her here with us. Ms. George has been associated with CDPQ since April 2016 and has been instrumental in bringing her in-depth knowledge of the South Asian business community in both the private and public sectors. She also has extensive experience in managing global investment portfolios. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you very much, Nadira. Privilege, pleasure to be here with all of you. I have the honor of actually closing these amazing 2 days of discussion and thanking all of you who have really added value to the dialogue between India and Canada on collaboration on agriculture. So let me begin by thanking the Honorable Ministers Bibo and Tomar from Canada and India, respectively, the Honorable Minister Blaine Pedersen from the Agriculture Ministry in Manitoba, the Deputy Minister Andre Tremblay from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, Alberta, the High Commissioners Nadir Patel and High Commissioner Bisaria, and I think everybody knows who they represent, so I won't elaborate. Ms. Alka Bhargava, Additional Secretary from the Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, Additional Secretary P. Harish from the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, Ms. Shubhra, Director General and Trade Advisor from the Ministry of Agriculture in India, my good friend, Mr. Deepak Bagla, who's the Chief Executive Officer and MD of Invest India. And last but not least, Mr. Murad Al-Katib, who gave an excellent presentation right now, President and CEO, AGT Food and Ingredients. I also want to specially thank all the participants and the audience because this topic of collaboration on agriculture and all aspects of agriculture, the entire supply chain from the farm to the plate, as they say, is critically important for both our countries. And another demonstration of where Canada and India can really bring value to both our economies by collaborating in this field. I want to thank very much the ICBC team and its amazing CEO, Nadira Hamid, who has constantly brought up areas and strengthened areas for collaboration between India and Canada. Minister Tomar referred to one nation, one market and transforming agriculture to an investment opportunity and also uplifting the opportunities for the Indian farmers. High Commissioner Bisaria characterized today as the 1991 moment for Indian agriculture. Minister Bibo laid out key areas in agriculture where India and Canada can work together. High Commissioner Patel talked about going from exchange of commodities to partnership in agri-tech between Canada and India. One area that stood out and that was referred today by Secretary Harish, also by the speakers who followed, including Mr. Al-Katib, was the area of plant proteins, which acknowledged nutritional deficit in India, which can be addressed through this, but also the opportunity for Canadian investors to look at India and to create a plant protein hub, not just for supplying the domestic market, but for supplying across the globe. Minister Bibo also shared that post-harvest processing, storage and handling can improve productivity and reduce waste. And as Minister Thomas said, this is an $18 billion investment opportunity in India. Other areas which I think are very important and are going to define what this will do to our planet globally is how we preserve resources used in agriculture. So precision agriculture, preserving water and reducing our carbon footprint, using technology to scale are other areas where we believe Canada and India can work closely. I was very heartened to hear Mr. Bagla's comment on investing in cold storage and logistics. I think he may have left, but I want to convey to him that I did follow his advice in my previous organization and in my current organization, CDPQ. where we invested in cold storage, in 3PL logistics, and state-of-the-art warehouses. And I can vouch that these have all been very successful investments, and investors can make a very good return. I am very proud also to reiterate what the ICBC President Nadira has suggested, an excellent idea of creating a white paper collaboratively on India and Canada in the agri-tech area. This is an area which I think can really bring together the different aspects of a very basic nutritional need, and at the same time improving resource efficiency, productivity, and serving the 1.5 billion people in India and the 36 million people in Canada. So let me stop there by saying a very big thank you. This has been really a very useful and productive discussion, which is just the beginning, and we hope to build on this and create another very strong pillar for our partnership between India and Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Anita, for all your encouraging words. And, with your guidance and support, I'm sure ICBC will reach even greater heights. And we will be very happy to publish the white paper on agri-tech. So with that, we come to the end of this session. I just want to take the liberty, if it's okay with the ministers, because we have with us Burgess Godrej, who is the scion of the very, the Godrej Industries, renowned Godrej Industries, which is very active in the agri sector in India. And he's currently on a break pursuing his master's from Harvard University. But he has joined us, and I thought if we can ask him for a minute, he just wants to talk about agri startup investments, which they have, Omnivore, which is a Godrej. He can just speak for 2 minutes if that is okay with everybody. So, Burgess, would you thank you for joining us, and just give you a minute to quickly talk about your ideas, and then we'll quickly close the session as the ministers would like to leave. Over to you.
Yes,
Burgess.
thank you. Thank you very much for having me here, Nadira. It's great to be here. I'll speak a little bit about the learnings I have on agri-investment opportunities from my work at Godrej and my summer internship with Bayer Crop Sciences, and speaking with venture capitalists in the space. So as far as food goes, I would say that it's very important that we cater the new food opportunities and the new alternative protein opportunities to Indian tastes. So catering them more towards kebabs, keema, rather than burgers, because that's more of a Western phenomenon. And I think one very important rule of thumb that I've learned is that if you want to do food in India, if you want to appeal to the masses, you need to have it be able to fit on a thali. That's what I've heard. Something that's very westernized will only target the niche market. It won't be able to target the masses in India. So those are my thoughts on food. And as far as agri goes, I see quite a few promising opportunities. The most promising, I would say, would be market linkages, because many farmers are unable to sell what they produce. They need a market for that. So how can we connect them to people who are willing to buy their produce? There's also a lot of opportunity in inputs. How can we improve access to sophisticated inputs to improve farmer yields and affordability? Because even if yield improves, that doesn't necessarily mean that profitability improves. We need to focus more on profitability. And then advisory is also very helpful. Give farmers an understanding of when to plant, what to plant, where they can sell it. Preventative chemical application will save them a lot of money rather than what they're currently doing, which is very reactive. Then we need to give farmers credit. They're currently getting credit from dealers. So how can banks, how can NBFCs come into the system, accurately quantify the risk involved, and give them credit to expand their operations? So those are what are the main opportunities in my view. And I just like to end by saying that all successful farming solutions will solve the problems of the farmer. The farmer is the only businessman currently in any kind of industry that is buying inputs at retail prices and selling their product at a wholesale price. So that dynamic needs to change if we want to make life better for the farmer and create good business opportunities in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Burgess. That was very, very insightful. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the formal address sessions and we move on to the panel session on plant protein production. I'd like to end the session by quickly thanking once again Minister Pedersen, Deputy Minister Tremblay, Ms. Shubhra, Mr. Harish, Mr. Deepak Bagla, Mr. Murad Al-Katib, and of course, Anita George, for joining us and for giving the closing remarks for this session. So may I now call upon the panelists for the next session. Murad is already here with us, and Bill has joined earlier. Joanna, Vivek Abraham, Akash Zaveri, and Kajal Bhatia. So let me begin now by just giving a little bit about a brief, and I think Murad, Deepak, all our speakers in the first session have already mentioned how important plant protein industry is, especially in a country like India. First of all, with a large vegetarian diet, plant protein is a necessity. India also needs technology and investment to increase production of plant protein, not only for domestic consumption, but also for exports. Another area of concern, which again was mentioned earlier, even with Murad, is that with rising incomes and there is a need for more proteins, and if everyone with money turns to animal protein, it will not be environmentally sustainable. Now, Canada has the expertise and technology, so we are looking for serious collaborations and partnerships. And we see this discussion today leading us to concrete steps towards plant protein industry growing in India. Let me now call upon Mr. Bill Gruel, who is the CEO of the Protein Industries Canada, to please give us his views, his perspective on the plant protein industry. Over to you, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Nadira. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen, and while I do that, maybe I'll just reflect a little bit on some of the comments that I heard. It was very encouraging to, okay, I think you can see that. It was just very encouraging to hear the messages from the previous speakers that talked about the idea of opportunities for collaboration between Canada and India, with a lot of themes around food security, food sustainability, strong relationships between our countries, and innovation in agriculture. And I was particularly struck by the phrase of moving from a commodity space to an agriculture technology space. Our work at Protein Industries Canada is really designed to help the plant protein industry address those issues and foster those relationships. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the work that we do at Protein Industries Canada. So this has been talked about a little bit, but I really want to just level set and talk about the volume of plant protein that we produce here. And as we're thinking about changing diets, and I was reflecting on what Mr. Harish said about the delta between protein intake and the recommended intake for protein in India, just to give a sense of why the partnership and the conversation between our countries is so critical and so important. So I think many of you on the call today will know that Canada is a plant protein powerhouse, but I just thought I would show this graph to demonstrate in real terms the amount of protein that we're producing. And our goal at Protein Industries Canada is to transform these raw commodities into high-value ingredients that are available for use in new food products that everyone is thinking about as our diets are changing around the world. And we're dealing with some of the issues that Murad spoke about in terms of environmental footprint of agriculture. And so I think it's really critical that we're having the conversation between Canada and India on this. So I represent Protein Industries Canada. It was mentioned before, we are one of Canada's 5 superclusters. we're investing a significant amount of dollars to grow the value-added and plant protein sector here in Western Canada. And because the theme in many of the opening statements was really about innovation in agriculture, I do want to highlight just some of the work that we're doing to give a sense of the means by which we are trying to transform our agriculture sector, but also open it up to opportunities for innovation and collaboration. So as an innovation supercluster, we really view Canada as a global leader in plant protein. And we do that by investing. We will invest over $300 million in 4 years to transform our value-added processing sector. And I'll talk specifically about some of the investments we're making so the members on the call today can get a sense of the types of investments that we're making. I think a theme that I heard today is a lot about collaboration and connections, and we really do that by putting people together in collaborative research and development projects. And I will mention that we do have a number of international organizations involved directly in some of the research work that we're doing, and would invite people, if they are interested in collaborative R&D with Canadian companies, that we can help facilitate that. And we really do try to take approach to do business differently and leverage our strengths in innovation and remove barriers. In terms of the investments that we make, the $300 million that we're investing, we do this in what we call a value chain approach to investments. Everything from plant breeding, some specific work on increasing protein content, for instance, in canola. Under the grow category, this is a theme that came up several times in the previous panel, talking about digitization of agriculture, chain of custody and traceability systems. We've got a number of projects working on that. Under the make category, this is the largest piece of our investments. This is really around developing new and novel processing technologies so that we can transform the crops that we grow in Western Canada and develop new food and feed ingredients. And then on the sell category, really about developing consumer packaged goods products and really understanding our end use markets. But I thought what I would do with my time remaining is really highlight some of the specific work that we're doing and just talk about the individual projects so that members on the call today can get a flavor for the types of investments that we're making. And so maybe I'll just highlight a few of those. From a breeding perspective, we're from a processing perspective, we're doing some work with some novel startup companies in Western Canada that are looking at novel processing technologies for canola and peas and utilizing completely new and novel processing technologies to create new ingredients from canola, from hemp, from sunflower, and from peas. So organizations that are interested in novel and new ingredients that can be utilized with different functional properties, very high protein content, a great amino acid balance because it's a mixture of canola and peas. This is the type of work that we're doing. I think this is the type of work it also demonstrates when we talk about what's called a value chain approach to research. And I think that's really a critical point for us to make at Protein Industries Canada. We're trying to put together collaborative R&D with plant breeding companies, together with processing companies, and together with end-use consumer and packaged goods companies. And so really trying to understand what the impact of breeding technology might be on the processing efficiency and what the combination of breeding and processing efficiency might be on the functionality of ingredients for consumer packaged goods. So it's really what we're calling a value chain approach to a research and development. From a breeding perspective, we've got very large R&D projects in canola. We've also got a breeding project in peas and pulses, looking at the creation of new hybrid canola with a higher protein content and a lower fiber content. That allows, in collaboration and connection with enhanced processing technologies, to produce products that can be used in human food consumption because it's got higher protein, but it also opens up markets for aquaculture feed and other high quality feed products. I think the other project that's on the screen here right now is an interesting one. There was so much talk in the opening comments about technology, about innovation, about on-farm efficiency, and the importance of traceability systems. This is a project where we've brought together a number of different organizations that's looking at on-farm efficiency, but then really utilizing the data and information that we're gathering at the farm level as the basis for a go forward on a traceability system. We know that our end use customers are asking more questions about how their food is produced, and there was many comments made in the opening section about the importance of sustainability. We really want to be able to prove that our ingredients are sustainable and that our production systems and our production methodologies are meeting the needs of our end use customers. And finally, I will just highlight a project that we're working on with a large manufacturer building a processing facility in Minister Pedersen's home province of Manitoba, looking at utilizing pea and fava bean ingredients in a new processing methodology to produce very high protein concentrates. So I think I would just leave it with, we're here at Protein Industries Canada. I want people to know and understand that we think this is a really important growth industry, not only for Canada, but for the world. That's why we're investing $300 million in the sector in science and innovation to increase our capacity, to make sure that we are setting ourselves up and can deliver the products and services that the world needs over the next 10 to 15 years as the protein increases. So if people are interested in a further discussion, I'm happy to identify business and research partners, make connections with the latest scientific developments, help to gain insights into what we're doing here in Canada, and invite anyone to become a member of the plant protein ecosystem. And I'll maybe just leave it with what the global opportunity that we see is. There's lots of statistics floating around about the growth of the plant protein market. This is one that I just pulled from Barclays Research very recently, that today the plant protein industry is worth about $14 billion. It represents about 1% of the global meat market. By 2029, which really isn't that far out, it's projected to grow to $140 billion and representing about 10% of the traditional meat market. So I think the growth opportunity is significant. Canada is well positioned to service that market, and Protein Industries Canada is established as an innovation supercluster to help create the science, technology, and products and create the global connections to try to meet those needs. So thank you very much again, Nadira, for the opportunity, and happy to participate in the panel and answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was really awesome. Your value chain approach and value-added research and your offer to be able to help for business and collaborations for people who are interested in the plant protein industry market. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of takers. And I look forward to, even if now we are not able to answer too many questions, but we will probably encourage all our attendees who have questions and will develop a kind of a communication with you. But anyway, let's stick to today and let's make the most of what we have today. And with that, let me go on to Murad Al-Katib, who's also on the board of Plant Protein, and he is the president and CEO of Agri-Food and Ingredients. We heard from Murad earlier, and we're looking forward to hearing a little more from Murad. And I think he's also going to share some slides. So over to you, Murad.
Yeah, Nadira, I don't have the share button, so I'm hopeful that you're going to have it.
Yes, we will.
Murad, I'll share
now I have it. Now I have it. There we go.
Okay.
Great. So thank you very much. Okay. So I'm just going to, now you can see the presentation, I think, Nadira, yes? Okay. Agri-Food and Ingredients, as Nadira mentioned, we're a value-added processor and handler of pulses and staple foods. And our ownership structure actually just underwent a change in 2019. And one of Canada's champions in the India relationship, Fairfax Financial, Prem Watsa, has actually become the majority owner of AGT Foods. So Prem and I partnered together with a vision of kind of building out this pulses business, a bulk grain handling business, and a pulse ingredients and retail packaged foods business. So we run 45 facilities in 6 key agricultural production origins. And our next target is to look at investing and developing our footprint in India. So, food production targets. I mean, we all talk about the opportunity in terms of, what the opportunity presents itself. But when we quantify, the FAO estimates that in the next 40 years, the world will produce the equivalent of what we produced in the last 10,000 years of civilization. So I think that, again, that really kind of, not only presents the opportunity, but it also magnifies the challenge of meeting global food targets, not only by production, but also a need to improve post-harvest storage, waste in the fields, and also food waste in general. Now, we talked about the environmental sustainability, but I think that the compelling story of pulses is that they are plant-fixing nitrogen. They have a low energy requirement when used in a continuous cropping system like we use in Canada. And with the technologies we use in zero and minimum tillage, soil erosion and conservation technologies. And then when considering, as we talked about with the rising incomes, the footprint of traditional meat protein versus plant-based protein, just look at the overall water footprint. We're talking about in gallons here, so you've got to multiply that by about 4.5. So when you look at that, you've got about 8,000 liters of water to produce a pound of beef, versus about, just about 200 liters to produce a pound of pulses. So, again, this is not only a environment story, but it's going to be a necessary growth in plant protein to be able to meet the growing population and demand. Now, when we look at India's, agriculture sector, we have, farm holdings. So 50% of the population is engaged in production. You've got irrigation, you've got a monsoon, reliance. Governments have very active programs. Cold storage and food processing industries are relatively underdeveloped. And, the government of India's top research institute reports 60% of agricultural land is at risk because of fertilizer misuse, poor cropping patterns, and soil nutrient deficiencies. So again, when we look at the technology and supply of micronutrients and fertilizers and potash, Canada is the natural partner for those types of things, as we are in a number of the different areas of the agriculture sector. So when we look at the pulses food system in India, pulses are marketed, it's changing. So, what we're seeing is we're seeing a transition from just a normal wholesale, a bulk distribution system to a quickly developing modernized pulse system. So consumers are demanding convenience, nutrition, value, and farmers are producing crops that maximize the returns. But the biggest challenge for modernization may be that balance in governmental policy on support of agriculture as to support local, but also to allow global supply opportunities. So there has to be a balance in government policy to ensure that we've got that balance met. Majority of the population is vegetarian. Pulses are the source of economical protein and essential nutrients. And when we look at that, there's a changing pulses consumption dynamic that is showing pulses per capita declining in terms of consumption. But with that growing protein deficiency, the economically downtrodden can't afford meat and thus consume vegetable protein. And I think that the highly affluent section is also turning to vegetable protein due to an increased awareness on health. And health and wellness are certainly becoming, important aspects of India. So the opportunity for modernization in India and the pulses sector will be what I would call a hyper development of the retail and food system. So use of pulses in the area makes sense for India. There's really a lack of, prepared foods, ready meals. We're seeing an increase in middle class, more women joining the workforce, work hours are extended. Quick meal solutions and convenience foods are a population, growth requirement as the economy develops and changes. Healthy snacks, Indians are snackers, right? They like their snacks, and from that perspective, healthy snacks to benefit rising consumption trends, and the ability to take fractions of pulses and target protein deficiency and micronutrient deficiencies are a really big opportunity. So, when I look at, emerging markets agriculture, and I look at the opportunity, open regional trade is a key component to growing efficient local agribusinesses. And, to make regions more secure, ag investment can be a driver. And I think that, the investment will be not only in processing and storage, but also in new varieties, farming practices, and technologies, including post-harvest storage and technologies that eliminate waste. So Canada is India's agri-food global partner. We've got abundant natural resources, strong networks of R&D. We have a sophisticatedly, ethnically diverse consumer base that stimulates product development, early adopters of technology at the farm gate. We have reliable access to capital, lowest use of pesticides per hectare, political stability and goodwill, and a strong primary and secondary processing sector. So, when I look at that, I used earlier in my comments, first off on the protein highway, we do believe that Canada has this opportunity on the ingredients and food because we have a reputation of safety, quality, trustworthiness, and, certainly a good brand image in the world. So, as Bill mentioned, we've got a plant-based protein sector, that's really focused on a continuous cropping in Western Canada on pulses, cereals, and oil seeds. Now, rotation is very important. We only have one crop a year, with India having more than one crop a year. Proper agronomy and rotational farming and sustainable farming practices are very important. So when we look at pulses and food trends, the consumer is driving a change in the world. Protein has a positive image with consumers. Vegetarian diets in the world are growing, and rising intolerance to allergens are making certain food and food ingredients more desirable. Pulses have a very low allergenicity, and there's a consumer demand for a variety of reasons: diet, health, nutrition, muscle, satiety, weight loss. All of these things are driving the development by food companies of new ingredients. I also have processing plants in Manitoba with our good minister, and with our deputy minister from Alberta, I have as well there. But, I wanted to just, highlight my home province of Saskatchewan, where we have 43% of Canada's land and crops, 88% of Canada's lentil exports, 84% of Canada's pea exports. So we are a major producer of agri-commodities in the world. Now, technology and innovation is kind of the subset of what we're talking about here, in addition to plant-based protein. And how will technology affect the face of ag exports over the next 20 years? I do believe that this digitization will assist farmers in optimizing their yield, anticipating future development. So predictive analytics with data is going to be a very important tool for both governments and for individual producers. Input suppliers, off-takers will be enabled, and value chains will be able to predict market dynamics, meet the consumer demands for transparency, reduce food waste and increase production, using things like blockchain, data, and the IoT, the Internet of Things. So sensors, data collection, drones, satellite imagery, these are all going to be important tools to increase production. So when we look at plant-based proteins, pulse ingredient processing is more than what you think about. So it's not just about producing dals. Today what we're producing in our factories, we're the world's largest producer of pulse ingredients, and we're doing granulated flours, fine flours, fibers, and fiber concentrates, starches and starch concentrates, and protein concentrates and protein isolates. So we're able to take these products and we're able to break them down into their components. And our innovation pipeline, we've become a leading supplier in the world now of texturized vegetable protein, which we call texturized pulse protein, TPP. And TPP is actually the combination of the protein fraction of pulses, which is extracted and then put through an extrusion system to create, texturized protein that can be used in, things as our young entrepreneur from Godrej said, whether it be kebabs or keema, or in our case in North America, burgers, or complete meat replacements on, mock chicken chunks, and vegetarian applications, or, the production of meatballs or any of those other alternatives. So when, just to give you an idea of how it's produced, I mean, what we produce is we produce these nuggets of protein, and then we make them into different granules, whether it be chunks, strips, slices, or granules, that when combined with binders and spices, they can be formed into meat alternatives, and they give the mouthfeel and texture of meat, and they're 100% plant-based. There's other applications as we look at protein and the development, because as we develop the protein fractions, we need to also utilize these starch fractions that are extracted from protein. So we've launched, a couple of products in the North American retail and food service recently. One, veggie pasta, which is 100% yellow pea-based pasta. And we've launched a veggie crumb, which is a yellow pea crumb, which is used as a breadcrumb replacement in all types of foods and all types of breadings and batters to give a crunchy, gluten-free, high-protein batter and breading system. So again, that innovation pipeline, continues. As we look at plant-based proteins, we can produce from the fractions, crunchy snacks. US has a company called Ripple, which is a very successful non-dairy milk company, which is using 100% yellow peas in the production of a non-dairy milk with 8 grams of protein, 50% more calcium than milk, and a micronutrient fortification on a non-dairy application. So these are all innovations that I think are very, very applicable as we look at closing that protein and micronutrient gap in India. And then I want to also say, lentils can be used in almost anything. And so, we're quite proud of a launch that came out in Canada recently that's been very successful, and that's lentil cream ale beer. So, along with your curry, we can now have lentil beer, as we're enjoying our snacks and a beer on a very hot day. So to kind of end it, Nadira, I mean, Canada and India are natural partners for the long term in the plant-based protein. So there's a global race to protein, and India is not only one of the largest markets, but it's also one of the largest origins of the raw material. And so, I do believe there's an opportunity for Canada and India to together partner to become a global powerhouse in the production of plant-based proteins, not only for the Indian market, but for export and for development throughout Asia and throughout the world. So there's a fundamental demand growth in population, and innovation and food processing is critical. So the natural two-way partnership for India and Canada on a two-way FDI and long-term cooperation is very important. So I'm going to end there.
Thank you, Murad. That was very, very interesting. And I think, as you said, that consumption patterns have been affected by rising incomes, changing prices, urbanization, globalization, and that has affected the plant protein industry. And we have got a very dynamic lady here, Kajal Bhatia, who's a whole food nutritionist and a diabetes educator, and she has a startup called Plant Power. So, Kajal, so let me ask you that, carrying on with this discussion of consumer behavior, what do you think are the factors that are driving the shift in consumer behavior to animal protein?
So interesting. Thank you for bringing me on this panel. I was here from 7 o'clock, and I'm very empowered to hear the committed views of the panel leaders. So thank you for that. But straight away, I'll start by sharing your the query to your question. There are 5 factors, Nadira, if you look at it. The number one being the health factor, especially with the COVID, which has been a game changer of sorts for many in India, especially in tier 1 and 2 cities, where being vegetarian or plant-based is becoming not necessarily a trend at this point in time, but there is some kind of awareness that's being generated by the millennials and also environmental activists, which is the next point. The Lancet did come out with a study last year, which also mentioned that by 2050, there will be more and more plants that will be included in people's diet. In fact, the Lancet actually published over 80%. So that is great news for entrepreneurs and committed visionaries like us. The third factor being the social ecological factor, which is actually where a lot of the animal protein is putting pressure on the planet itself in terms of its resources, the carbon footprint, etc. The fourth one being the ethical impact, where simply moving away from anything that involves animal cruelty of any kind, that itself is something that drives a lot of people away. And the last one being sustainability, where by using substitutes for meat is going to help in the long run in terms of a sustainable food supply. So all these 5 factors, holistically, if you look at it, it's quite, all-encompassing, and it's definitely moving towards a plant protein is here to stay impact.
That's great, Kajal. And also wanted to ask you that how can plant protein manufacturers here match other protein ingredients which are largely manufactured overseas?
So at Plant Power, Nadira, where I'm myself, on the journey to democratize plant-based nutrition, not only for India but for the world, it is a challenge. When I started 3 years ago, there were very few people, in fact, dealers in India. The proteins were being imported, which still are largely, that is the pea and the brown rice protein. And also bringing them into food production and making things like Mr. Murad said earlier, trying to go direct to customer and being able to give what they want, which is tasty snacks, tasty dairy alternative products, or tasty meat alternative products. It becomes difficult only to work with a certain kind of protein. So the idea was that how does one get into leveraging India's bioagricultural diversity that we have here, in our country. We have millets, we have, superfoods like amaranth, we have, soya, of course, has always been there. But there are so many other, the pulses, the lentils, all of them, when they are looked upon and they are worked with by universities, which I'm doing right now, to be able to increase the protein content so that it matches with the animal protein out there, whether it's in the form of meat, dairy, or even whey. At Plant Power, we are actually removing whey out of the system because whey is a byproduct, from milk to curd. And if we can offer a better alternative, then why not with the same amino acid profile, with a PDCAS ratio that is good enough to be able to supplement protein aspirations of people. And of course, besides the raw material, the second aspect is actually having world-class facilities and infrastructure in India, which we also are, developing great talent. Today I was in a webinar where ICRISAT is working very closely with entrepreneurs like me. There is also the Department of Biotechnology, which is very, is doing a lot of work in this area. So it's very, very encouraging for entrepreneurs like us who are wanting to make it a better world for everyone involved, and even bring the farmers into the supply chain. So currently my product is direct to consumer, but as more and more demand rises and there is some kind of unit economics, then I would be able to bring the farmer also into the supply chain and give the benefit of R&D through innovation and take it to the farmers. So that's my vision, and that is going to happen in this lifetime.
Thank you, Kajal, for that. And, and it was very interesting. I wish you all the very best because it's really encouraging to know what all you are doing over here. And with that, we are very privileged also to have with us Dr. Joanna Pataka. At the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics in Hyderabad. And thank you, Dr. Joanna, for being here with us. And we really look forward to hearing your views on this.
Thank you, Nadira. I've enjoyed watching last night and today. Very interesting. There was been a lot of talk about investment in this area, and one of the areas that we really push that's so critical for any investment is that we really should be looking at a smart food triple bottom line. So there's a triple bottom line, which is well known for industry, but this is designed especially for food industry. So where we say any solution, any investment at all must be good for you, good for the planet, and good for the farmer. So good for you is that being healthy and nutritious, good for the planet, environmentally sustainable, and good for the farmer, how they're engaged in that value chain. If you look over time, and actually Shubhra from the ministry talked about this tonight, where initially there was the focus on food security. Now India has achieved that. Now there is a huge focus on nutrition security because India has not achieved that. But then even more recently, the UN have been talking about sustainable diets. How do you have food and diets that are more sustainable in the environment? And we heard some good statistics just earlier on how pulses are more sustainable on the environment. But we have to go a step further and bring in the farmer side. How is any solution, any investment, engaging the farmer in the right way in that value chain? And that's what Shubhra from the ministry was talking about. And India has that mission for doubling farmer income. So how do we ensure any investments include that? We try to really encourage what we call smart foods. So there are particular foods that naturally fit that, or crops and commodities like the pulses, also millets and sorghum that were just mentioned. So they are naturally smart foods. However, it's then what we do with them when we process them and how we establish that value chain, whether or not they stay true to that triple bottom line. And what we find is that new entrepreneurs, like we just heard from Kajal, new entrepreneurs are often the ones that are really, really genuine about having a positive impact in the world. They're real social entrepreneurs, and they're the ones often really pushing and new boundaries for changing consumer awareness and consumption patterns. And we find these new entrepreneurs, they're the pioneers, but they often struggle just as much as farmers struggle. And it's very hard for them to go to scale. There's a lot of incubation support in India, but there's very little after that incubation. And then they are alone, they struggle, and it's very difficult to get to scale. So more solutions are needed to help SMEs pass that incubation stage. I think also we've talked a lot about different opportunities tonight, which markets have the opportunities. I think something that's not there yet, but it's a future opportunity and very few people are tackling this, is combination foods. So no one food is going to satisfy all your health and nutrition needs. So how can we be more clever with the with selling and promoting combinations. And we heard Mr. Harish from the ministry also talk tonight, and he talked about bioavailability of food. Now, that's about how much of the goodness and the nutrients are being absorbed, and how you combine foods impacts on that bioavailability. So it's how foods are complementary to each other. Now, one example of that, we did a protein study we released just recently, where we looked at the combinations of pulses with millets and sorghum. So because many of the pulses do not have a complete protein. And of course, most consumers aren't really fully aware of complete protein versus a protein, and just when it's promoted as a good protein source. So what we found is the methionine, which is the essential amino acid a lot of the pulses are short on, millets have 50% more of that particular essential amino acid. So we looked at optimal combinations. So we found in the ratio of 3:1 of millets to pulses, you get the ultimate combination. So you will get a complete protein, a highly digestible protein, and a huge amount of micronutrients, because the millets, like the pearl millet, which we tested, which is super high in iron, and then the finger millet, which is super high in calcium. So that combination is very, very powerful. And I think that's sort of one of the new areas to promote. But also the other area that's been mentioned a lot tonight, which is important to promote, is about healthy snack. That snack market is a big, important market, but how do we ensure that stays healthy, I think? I mean, most people may have heard of greenwashing, which is when a company or a product gives a false impression that their product is environmentally sustainable. It may be just the packaging, it may be clever wording, etc. But you can get nutrition washing as well. So how are we staying genuine to something being truly nutritious? How are we staying away from ultra-processed foods? And there's a lot of foods out there being promoted as protein foods and healthy foods, and they're ultra-processed, and a lot of additives, using petrochemicals, all sorts of things done to them. And so I think we have to be very careful of we can call nutrition washing. But I think another opportunity that hasn't necessarily been tackled by the pulse market is creating products, especially for the malnutrition market. So India has still a huge area on this hidden hidden hunger, which is the malnutrition. They've highly successfully achieved food security, but not nutrition security. So there's a lot of specific needs for children, for pregnant women, for people in environments that aren't. There's a lot of protein deficiency in India, high, and we heard a statistic earlier tonight as well on that. So how can we design foods, especially for those markets as well? That's very, very important. And I don't think that's been well tackled. And we've done a number of studies to really show that you can turn consumers around in their views and impressions and what they think of these foods. So we did some studies in Myanmar, India, and Tanzania. So, for example, in Tanzania, we went in and we worked with 4 schools in introducing pigeon pea and millets into their foods. These were all boarding schools, so all their meals are provided to the students. Now, the students all had a very negative view about these particular foods. And by the end, we went back 18 months after having done the work with the schools, and we did a survey, and we found 70% of those students had changed their negative attitude about pigeon peas. And it was just the way you do it. You know, we worked with the school cooks. We developed better, tasty recipes. You know, we had our nutritionists working on this, so it was tasty and healthy. And so it's more the way you do it, the way you bring it in. And we did a slightly similar program in India. We did the first, worked with Agri-Food, which is the largest school feeding program in India. And we brought in millets and we worked with their chefs and our nutritionists on how to combine the millets, the legumes, and the vegetables. So it was that combination that was absolutely powerful. And the results were absolutely stunning. And within 3 months, we had more than 50% additional growth from the children, from the 1,500 children in the schools compared to the control group of another 1,500 children. So it was excellent results. And we did sensory evaluations every month with the children. And they all rated the foods 4.5 out of 5 or higher. So it was just the way you introduce them and we had an awareness program around it. So we think there's lots of different potential out there, but we really recommend any solution has that smart food triple bottom line. Good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. Okay, so thanks, Nadira.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think you're fabulous. I could listen to you. I could just continue listening to you. I loved what you said about the triple bottom line. Good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. I loved your opportunities that you pointed out about the combination foods and about the nutrition security that we need to ensure, healthy snacks, and what you're doing with the schools. I think incredible work for this, Joanna. And really would love to engage with you further and see how we can work together. So thank you for that. And let me now ask Akash Zaveri, we've got from Olay Health, and also a little bit into research. So Akash, we are falling short of time a little bit. We've overshot. So I would ask you, but we would really like to hear your perspective. So if you could quickly give us a little bit of what you are doing and what is your perspective on the plant protein industry.
Sure. So just a small background. I run a company called plant-based in commercializing plant-based proteins in the Indian market. We started our business around 3 years ago, and we're one of the leaders in marketing plant-based proteins to the general health and fitness market in India. So we believe that there are a couple things required to kind of scale the adoption of plant. Yeah, and it starts. I would say there are 3 core factors, and 3 of them being taste, availability, accessibility, and credibility. So when it comes to taste, there is a challenge in the market with the taste of plant-based proteins, masking the taste. And I think that is somewhere where flavor innovation will play a very pivotal role. Food science will play a very pivotal role in masking some of the earthy notes of plant-based proteins and making it more palatable so that the adoption of it in multiple different form factors can be achieved. On the other hand, availability, there are very few commercialized products leveraging plant-based proteins in India. Example, pea proteins, brown rice proteins, mung bean proteins. These are all very nascent in India, very new phenomenons in India. So the adoption in formulations are also very low. Hence, the awareness about the benefits of these is low. The last is credibility. So when we are marketing our products in categories which are highly competitive and highly established by animal-based protein competition, establishing the credibility of plant-based proteins is something which is very critical. And that is something where our efforts are very aligned towards. And I believe that through marketing, through awareness, through education about the bioavailability, the amino acid profiles, kind of the benefits, sustainability around the source of this ingredient, when more players will continue to do this and kind of bring this into the Indian market, I think the adoption will increase. So we are seeing challenges, but we are also seeing opportunities. We are seeing growth. We are seeing a lot of westernization happen in India. And I think that's really driving a lot of the consumer adoption here.
Thank you, Akash. I think what you're doing is fabulous. And I'm sure this is going to be really big. As you've heard from all our speakers, all our panelists, that how important this is, especially for India. And we have the Canadian side. We've heard all the young startups, doing incredible work. And now I'd really like to call upon Vivek Abraham. who is with Invest India. Vivek, tell us a little bit about, from your point of view, what what does Invest India? I mean, can you make the best? We had a fabulous panel where we had the Canadian side talking about wanting partnership with India. They see India as a natural partner. We heard Joanna talking about what the new opportunities are, and we heard Akash and Kajal, who are the young startups here in India, who are viewing this as their potential huge business opportunity. So, what would you see, Vivek? What would you like to suggest that Invest India probably could help in in helping this collaboration?
No, thank you, Nadira. I think, after hearing all of the presentations, this is clearly one of the opportunities which is going to be probably $1 billion opportunity in the next decade or so. And as Deepak said in the previous session, agriculture is one of our key drivers of the economy. And one of the things that we would want to do is keenly engage with all of the companies and all of the ideas that were mentioned here. We also run a fairly active startup initiative, the flagship initiative of the country, in fact, Startup India. So we can actually do a very, very extensive outreach program for a lot of them to ensure that they're plugged into the latest tech and innovations. And at the same time, I feel, we haven't really utilized our potential. A lot of the food, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, is going wasted. And we haven't really done most of the investment in logistics and cold chains and storages. And a lot of the food still could be processed. So we are very focused on attracting companies and investments that can actually fill that gap. And and India is one of those countries that is keen to improve its investments or enhance its investments in a sustainable way. And this is one of those ways that we can take this forward. So very excited to be part of this platform, Nadira, and I'm looking forward to take this engagement further.
Thank you, Vivek. So with this, I think we have overshot our session, but it was so interesting, and I just want to quickly ask all our panelists, esteemed panelists, is there just a 1 minute closing remark that you would like to make? And let me start with Bill Grohl. If you're here. And we are very honored that we could have you, and thanks to this virtual platform that you're able to speak to us from Canada. So is there anything that you could just would like to talk about?
Yeah, well, I think I would just like to thank you, Nadira, for the opportunity to speak and for the interest in what we're doing here at Protein Industries Canada. There's so much opportunity when I listen to what the opening speakers talked about in terms of collaboration on innovation and the issues and challenges that we're trying to address. I think there's a lot of similarities. We're thinking about food security, food sustainability. That's really the work that we're focused on at Protein Industries Canada. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to address the group and share our comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill, and we really look forward to working together with you in the future.
Thank you.
Yes. Murad, is there anything that you would like to say, a final word?
Well, I think that, Nadira, it's just that the cooperation is so natural. We can't ignore all of the advantages. And I think that, the commercial relationship developing in breadth, both on a investment in both India and in Canada, and trade in both India and in Canada. It's not a one-way trade relationship, and we need to continue to reiterate that Canadian companies investing in global value chains in India is a significant opportunity. And I think we're going to continue to see a shift from a China-centric thought process in Canada to an India-centric thought process. And our company and Fairfax, we're certainly already there, and we're excited to be one of the leaders in driving that thought.
And we are excited to have AGT in India as well, Murad. So,
Thank you.
So thank you for that. Joanna?
Right. Hi, thank you, Vera. I really appreciate the opportunity and I've enjoyed this. I'll make one extra point as my final point. I think what's important also to focus on is how can we bring these pulses into mainstream? Now, you could say they're in mainstream in India, but we also heard that per capita consumption is going down and they're not seen as the new food anymore. They're a little bit the older food or just something extra you have. I think there is an opportunity in 2023, we hope, and it's being led by the government of India, to have a UN International Year of Millet. Now, you'll all remember your year of pulses. And as we talk about combination foods, this is an extra opportunity because this is going to get global attention. This is an opportunity to look at the combination foods. Millets and sorghum are hugely complementary with pulses, all extremely big and important in India. So I think there's new collaborations and opportunities to explore there with the millets and sorghum.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joanna. That's the year of the millet is something we'll all remember. With that, also, Kajal, I think anything that you'd like to add quickly?
I would just copy Joanna's line for the people and for the planet. That's all.
Absolutely true. Akash? So, yeah, Akash, are you there or have we lost you? So anyway, I don't think Akash is here, and Vivek has already given us his closing remarks. So with that, let me thank all of you once again. It was a fabulous session, very, very interesting, and I'm sure that we will follow up soon and have some more focused discussions because as we all, have all realized together that the plant protein industry is here to stay. It is the future, and we need to make the most of this potential. So thank you, everybody. And let me go straight into our next session, which is on cold storage and on logistics. And we have a great panel, great panelists who are already here. And let me quickly welcome all of them. We have Mr. Steve Donaldson, President and Chief Executive Officer, Thermal Frost. We have Mr. Sunil Nair, Chief Executive Officer of Snowman Logistics, and Mr. David Ernst, President of Beta. So, as we all know, cold storage systems, logistics, and investments in cold storage and logistics, they are a very, very important part of this revolution of the agricultural sector. And we need even more to ensure higher quality checks at every point of the supply chain. That is from harvesting to consumption, FDI and agribusiness investments and opportunities. So with that, let me go on to Steve. Steve, tell me what are your views and, a little bit if you can give us a background on the whole logistics and the food supply chain.
I think India is on the cusp of opportunity, and we look at all of the challenges, but I sort of reflect back and make a comparison to the telecom industry. And 25 years ago, in the West, we looked and we said, oh, we have all these telephone lines in place. How will a country like India advance in the communications? They don't have the infrastructure with the telephone line. And I relate that to where India is right now with agriculture and the energy sector. And with Ms. Kane Paturka, I believe was her name, and she mentioned it's got to be good for you, good for the environment, and good for the farmer. And she emphasized that because many of us were talking about the first two, but not so much the farmer. And the opportunity I feel that lies with India is to really on the theme of distributed energy, and it relates to the cold chain, but moving away from centralized everything to decentralized. And so decentralized distributed means that you can bring in renewable energies. And it also decentralized for the smallholding farmers that is a prevalent characteristic in India. We need to address cooling at the farmer's gate. So moving energy out to the farmer and away from centralized power generation, I believe can tie in with addressing the needs of the farmer, doubling farmers' income, sustainability with renewable, and then also food preservation. So the first 4 hours of preserving food and the importance of refrigeration soon after harvest.
Right, Steve. That is all very important because we have because food wastage is, I think, the worst things that could ever happen with people needing food, and yet there is so much wastage just because, as you said, of lack of infrastructure, which is very necessary, and that is why there is so much importance to this transportation, warehousing, storage is a very important part of the this whole agricultural sector. We next have Sunil Nair. Sunil, would you like to give us your viewpoint?
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. I will take it forward from Steve. He is absolutely right that the way the whole telecom revolution happened in the country, that is where we stand as of now as far as the agri is concerned, and particularly the post-harvest part of the agriculture. But I think we have been focusing on post-harvest for quite some time. There are 2-3 important things that we need to focus on here, particularly if we want a faster change in this area. One is the whole cultivation and harvesting practice need a lot of change. That is something which I have been working with some of the companies, and I find that cold chain infrastructure is important when your produce is of that quality and specification. So that is something which government is now working on a lot. Second important thing that we are now learning is the best way of preserving is to process it. And we need to have a lot of processing facilities close to the farm gates. And for that, government also have come up with a lot of subsidies and grants to set up food processing facilities very close to the growing areas, so that we don't lose on quality and quantity in transporting longer distances where the facilities are. So 2 things. One is the whole cultivation and harvesting practice, and secondly, the whole processing part of it. India being very, spread in terms of the agri-produce, there is almost all the vegetables that we consume, Indians consume as of now is grown within 250-300 kilometer radius. And they are harvested and transported within few hours to the consumption centers and the retail markets. People have still not realized the value that a cold chain can add to it. As of now, the moment we talk about cold chain, there is a comparison of cost addition versus the value addition. So I think now slowly people are realizing the importance of cold chain and the value it adds in terms of freshness and the nutritional value of the agri-produce. So I think this is the best time to focus in that area in India.
Yeah, you're totally right, Sunil. This is the right time, and I think people are slowly now that awareness is coming upon everyone, and hence the focus on this sector. In fact, yesterday, Minister Bibo, Minister for Agriculture, Canada, also emphasized that how important transportation and logistics is in this whole new agri revolution. I'd now like to ask David Ernst. who's president of Terra Beta, to come in and say a few words.
Hey. Thank you for inviting me to talk on this. My experience is not in India, it's in Canada. Our company is a grower of cranberries. That's our main business, a processor of cranberries. So we have cranberry farms. We grow about 30% of our production, and we process about 1/3 of the cranberries that are grown in our region. The rest of them are exported in an unprocessed state out of our region. The cranberries that we process, we take from the farms, we clean them prior to freezing, and then we freeze them in an IQF freezer, and then we store them in a large fully automated cold storage here on site. And then we bring them back out of the freezer, grade them to specifications that they'd be perfect for baking or whatever use, like cranberry muffins or whatever they'd be used for. And then we ship them all over the world. Ironically, I have never seen us ship a container of cranberries to India yet, because it's not really a culturally accepted food in India. We've had inquiries about cranberry juice for India, but I'll talk about the frozen side because that's what we're talking about today. The reason our business started off as a farm business. We started out 25 years ago, actually 30 years, well, no, 25 years ago, as the idea of growing a farm. Once we had cranberries, we had to figure out how to sell them. We learned that people only eat a certain amount of cranberries, each in it, so you need a large population to sell to. So our business went from being a very small idea to within about 8 years exporting all over the planet. The biggest thing that has been a challenge, the growth of our business, has been the cold chain. Because if we don't have the processing facility located in the right location next to the cold storage, we have to truck in between. And every time you handle product, every time you move product, it adds cost and you lose quality. So over the last 25 years, we improved our business. We got other partners in third-party cold storage. And then 3 years ago, we made the decision to invest in New Brunswick, here in Canada, in a large automated cold storage. It took another partner in our business, which is actually in the egg business, the largest egg company in Canada, Burnbrae Farms. It took them cooperating with us, and we built a cold storage that's 5 times as big as what we need. And the reason we did that, and this is because we recognized that other people also wanted cold storage. And then they can take advantage of the investment that we made without having to make their own investment. So our little business has grown and has a very large cold storage. It's a fully automatic one. I don't know if you don't know anything about cold storages, but most of the time people drive forklifts around in the cold storages to put the product away, and they have to work in the cold. Our system is completely robotic. So the product goes in through the door and there are no people. You don't even have to have the lights on. It automatically stores the product in its position in the rack. It keeps track of it with the computer warehouse management system. When you want your product back out, you can say, I want this specific pallet with this specific lot number, and it'll bring it out. We went to that. That's the highest level of technology there are in cold storages. It's the first one of this type in this part of Canada. So we went, instead of investing in a low-tech drive around in the cold, we went to the high-tech with the idea that other people would want to take advantage of that technology and have their product here too. It's still a work. I'm 3 years into this project. It's still a work in progress. There's quite a bit of product in the cold storage. We're getting better and better at the business every day. I can say that if you want to invest in this type of technology, there's a big learning curve, right? There's a lot to keeping a freezer cold. There's a lot to keeping the product moving in the freezer, and there's a lot to keeping track of the inventory that's in there. So, we're getting better at our business. We're doing it right here in our region because it made sense for us to do it, because this is where our product is growing. So basically what I'm saying is you're right about the points about you need to have the cold storage near to where the product's produced. Otherwise, the logistics just don't work.
Yes, that's right, totally. And as you said, yes, cranberry juice is very popular over here, but yet the cranberry is popular. But next, you never know. Soon you might be having shipments to India as well, as people are becoming more and more.
Yeah, we ship a lot to China, which.
Yeah. So hopefully India should be our next stop. And I think Yes, and your robotic technology, as you said, it's not just cold storage, it was the highest technology used in cold storage, where you have your inventory, where everything is, once you inside, everything is taken over by the robotic technology. So fabulous. This was very interesting to know. And, I'll come back to you, as to what would be your ideas for partnerships in India. What do you have in mind, when you think of furthering your business? So, coming back to Steve, Steve, so you spoke about the cold chain and the logistics. So, I just wanted to know that, from your business expansion point of view, where do you see India, number one? How do you think that what partnerships would you be looking at? And is there anything, are you looking for partners here? Are you looking for any kind of expansion plans? What are your plans, Steve?
Yeah, we are newly moving into India. We've been held back this year for obvious reasons. But we are moving forward with various installations. And in India, it's really quite interesting, the different sorts of partnerships that we are forming. And it relates, both Sunil and David touched upon this idea of distributed and cooling close to the area of harvest. So one interesting partnership is with a company called Prespal, Punjab Renewable Energy Services Limited. They are a biomass power generation company. And whenever you generate power, the vast majority of the energy is lost in the form of waste heat. So an advantage, or rather a disadvantage, when power generation is centralized is how do you utilize this waste heat, whether it be for drying cranberries or for even warming a building. When you decentralize it, you can harness the waste heat and put it to useful purpose. So what Prespal does is they address another problem in India also, which is the stubble burn. So they take the stubble and they burn it in a controlled environment to generate power. So maybe 20% of that energy is convertible into electricity. What do you do with that other 80%, which is lost in the form of waste heat? Thermofrost is working with companies to harness that waste heat and raise the efficiency from 20, 30, 40, up to 50, 60, 70% energy efficiency. What Thermofrost does is instead of using electricity to provide cooling using conventional mechanical means, we harness waste heat and use a chemical process to provide cooling. So that waste heat energy that would otherwise be unutilized, we utilize to make cold. Now, we have other partners that it moves out to somewhat to decentralized, maybe at the Mundi level or at a farmer co-op or a food processing plant. Then you can invest in our chillers to provide cooling economically. But what about the farmer's gate? There are other companies in India like Plus in Gurugram, just outside of Delhi. And they are heavy into material science for phase change materials. And so at the farmer level, a small farmer investing in a chiller plant like a Thermofrost would do isn't economical. But they have really innovative solutions to be able to bring cooling right to the farmer's gate. And so it's addressing this whole chain, the first mile, the farmer's gate, until we can get it eventually to the consumer. These are the sorts of partnerships that we are forming in India.
That's extremely interesting, and I think a lot of our attendees today would be interested in, probably finding out more about it, and we hope that you get even more partnerships and that you can expand into India. The steel burning, trying to, harness the waste into, probably into energy, and that you can do that is one of the, the very, very topical. It's something that is a huge potential here today, especially. So, that, and plus to get into that. So I'll come back to you for final remarks again, and let me now go on to Sunil. Sunil, yeah, you've heard about from Steve as to what they're looking for in India, what kind of partnerships they have been doing. What about you, Sunil? What are you thinking about? Is there something with the Canadian technology that you could feel that would, probably enhance your business with any kind of partnerships?
Okay. So, see, we are the largest cold chain company in India as of now. We have 33 cold storage facilities in the country. But looking at the way the India is growing, India is unlike China, where each unit would be very large. In India, the number of units will be large, but each unit will be small, because every 300-400 kilometer distance, things change completely. The language change, the taste change, the food habits change, everything changes. So we prefer having multiple units rather than having one large unit. So on an average, our facility would be 5,000 pallet positions or 5,000 ton capacity each facility. We have 33 of such facilities, very strategically located in the country. And we try to use the best technology available as of now in refrigeration. We import a lot of technology from US in terms of refrigeration. And none of our facilities are robotic as of now, but in terms of maintaining temperature and food safety compliances, they are comparable with most of the facilities across the globe. The main challenge that India is facing is the fluctuating volume, basically because of our dependency on the nature. And as I told you earlier, there is part of the year when you will find that your infrastructure is highly underutilized. We as a company have focused more on consumption centers and not the source centers. So all our facilities are located at consumption centers, and hence we ensure that it is largely utilized throughout the year with one or the other produce coming into it. The problem that the remote places, the places where agriculture produce is grown, is that their produce is quite seasonal. If I take a small city of Nasik in India, that itself has 500 cold storage facilities in the radius of, say, 50-kilometer radius. You will find 500 cold storage facilities, but they use it only during grape season from December to March, and then it is shut down throughout the year. So this is not an economical model. So what we need is a model where if 4 months it is used for grape, then rest of the period it should be used for some other produce. So right from growing, harvesting, processing, and then storing, I think that kind of learning, if it is there in Canada, and if that kind of initiative that someone wants to take up in this country, we would be happy to participate. As we have taken care of the last leg of the distribution, we are there at consumption centers. We know what is sold there. What we need to plug is the backward integration part of it.
No, true, Sunil. The backward integration is important, and as you said, to have a very economical model. And I think this, what you have brought forward, is a very interesting issue. And this is something that we can talk to our Canadian companies who have the expertise. And, there should be a learning from which you can also gain, and there can be a win-win situation for India and Canada. So,
Sure.
Hopefully we will take this forward. I think this is a very valid point that you have brought about. And let me go back to David Ernst now. Before they can go on to thinking about higher technology in the cold storage, that to first make it at least economically viable, because it is a very certain times of the year only that they use, and the others are lying vacant. So for people, this is a challenge here. What are you thinking about? Do you have any plans for India, David? And what are your business plans for expansion?
Some of there. Okay. Our plans right now have been, we are actually, we built a cold storage. It's larger than Sunil's average size, but it is our first one, right? It is our only one, right? So our focus right now is on getting that cold storage to work. When it comes to India, I haven't even thought of it, to be honest. The technology we purchased, it comes out of Germany. I have seen installations in Asia. There's there are installations of their technology in Asia, not in the cold storage side, but in other spots where it was appropriate to put in highly automated equipment. My thinking is right now, if we get our cold storage figured out and working the way that we want to, and our big thing is that it has to run year round. We can't shut this off, because when you invest in automated technology, you're paying for the equipment whether you're using it or not. With a simple cold storage or a basic cold storage, if you turn it off, you're not paying the labor, right? And so it's different. So we need to figure out how to make this work. It's very interesting, the comment about figuring out how to make stuff work year round. That's the key, I think, to anything that we would be able to add anything to.
That's true. That's something that we have to think about, that how to make things work all year round and make it economically viable. So let us think about that. What if there is something that you can?
I know that with the automated cold storages, there aren't a lot of them around, and that if somebody was interested in going in that direction, no matter where they are in the world, it would be useful to find somebody who can help navigate that all the automation. I'm sure there are people, who would be able to pick it up. There are people in our region who have learned to use our system, but since it was new technology to the area, it wasn't like we could hire people with experience already, and it made for a very different business to develop. It was a much more challenging.
Yes, true. I agree. So just a final round, some closing remarks. Let me go back to Steve. Steve, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for this discussion today. It's been interesting with the other panelists. And just to carry on with what David is saying, something that, cooling needs to be 24/7, all months of the year. And we are looking at solutions that incorporate thermal energy storage. So that's a lot of what we are doing. And what that enables, the easiest example to use is when the sun is out, thermal frost can make cold. And so we freeze these phase change materials that can precisely control the temperature, even when the sun isn't out on a rainy day or at night, so that you can have this sustainable cooling for reliable, even off the grid cold storage, which can be very beneficial for India.
Thank you, because I think you're using all the renewable areas, renewable energy, to be able to be, as you said, to
yes,
to put it.
Yeah, renewable is an important aspect. And even in natural gas power generation or anything where you've got all of this waste heat, harness that and generate cooling.
Yeah, sure. Harnessing waste heat, and hopefully we should be able to get, some more partnerships that you can have in India. So all the best to you, Stephen. Thank you for joining us. Sunil, any comments from you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it is quite inciting one, particularly David, your facility. we have evaluated the robotic one here, which is ASRS system. But we found that unless the size of the facility is 50,000 pallets, it was not working out economical. But we do have a lot of similar facilities in FMCG where there is no temperature control, where the facilities are G plus 16 high. Whereas in our cold storage, as of now in India, G plus 5 is the most optimal one, considering the ROI that you would expect from the investment. So once we reach that size, we'll definitely, get in touch with you to have your experience. Hopefully by then your facility will be up and running. So thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Those are the key words: to stay safe, stay healthy in these times. David, just a couple of lines from you, so after which we will end this session.
Thank you. Yes, it's interesting, Sunil, that you have evaluated it, because you're absolutely right. There is a minimum size where it doesn't make sense. So they need to be big facilities. So.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you once again. Thank you, David, Sunil, for all your thoughts, for giving us your time. Collectively, we have had these 2 days of intensive discussions on the agricultural sector, and we've all realized that there is a new wave now. We need advanced technology for improving farming methods, for post harvest, for preserving both raw material and processing and preserving food. So these are all we have had these of discussions, and this in fact is the last session of the 2 days. And we hope that all these discussions will materialize into more partnerships. And we want to make this into a kind of an annual summit, Agri Summit. And hopefully by next year there would be even more, newer ideas and newer, opportunities. So I just want to thank all of you for your insights, for your input. Please know that the time that you have spent with us will not be in vain. We will definitely work on this, take this as a basis, and move ahead. We are going to be releasing a white paper report. This will be part of this, and we will probably get in touch with you to get some more views from you, which we can add to the report. So good night, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home as much as you can. And thank you for being with us over these 2 days. I hope this has been very, very of value to you, and I hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have enjoyed it. Because I've been sitting here since 6:30, listening to all different views, and it has been absolutely, absolutely interesting and very productive. Thank you once again. Good night, everybody. All the best.